I didn't realize what I had walked into when I married my husband, but I didn't know how to escape. My mother-in-law is straight from any girl's worst nightmare. She's super possessive of her son, has always treated me like an intruder, and has made me feel inadequate and unwanted for as long as I've known her, basically. My husband and I met in college. He told me that he was raised by a single mom and that they were very close. At that time, I thought that was the sweetest thing ever. Little did I know. I never met my mother-in-law before getting engaged to my husband, but I knew that they talked on FaceTime every single day. This was a little weird for me, but I didn't think much of it. Again, I thought it was really sweet. After he proposed and I said yes, we decided to visit his mother back in Oklahoma so we could finally meet. I wish I could say that I had a bad feeling about her from the start or something, but the truth is that she was really nice to me that day. She was polite, asked me questions about myself and my family, and was just sweet. I felt so lucky and even remember telling my husband that night that I think his mom and I would get along really well. So we got married. It was a countryside wedding back at his place, and it was really sweet. After the wedding, we moved back to the city. It was great. I was happy. A few months after the wedding, though, my husband one day asked me how I would feel about moving back to his hometown. He said that his mom was getting really lonely and had asked us if we would be comfortable with that. I was unsure. But even before the wedding, when we were discussing our future and having kids together, we had agreed that I would be a stay-at-home mom. I've honestly never been opposed to that idea. I think I'd enjoy that kind of life. But moving away from the city wasn't something I had ever pictured. My husband suggested taking a weekend trip and just trying the place out, though, and I agreed. I mean, what could be the worst that comes out of that, right? Wrong. Very, very wrong. But by the time I realized that, it was too late. We went for the trip and it was actually really nice. I liked how calm everything was. I liked the people. I liked the fresh air. After coming back, my husband asked me again what I thought of moving there, and I agreed. Looking back, I think I was just bored. I definitely needed a change and happened to choose the worst possible way of achieving that. Extremely unfortunate. We moved there about 3 months after that, less than a year into my marriage. Now that I think of it, I can't even fathom what had gotten into my head that made me do that. I guess I got swept away by the idea of having this idyllic family life. Well, my dreams came crashing down really, really fast. We literally moved into a house, literally about 5 minutes walk from my mother-in-law's house. I guess at this point I should be grateful we didn't directly move in with her. The first few days were fine, nothing out of the ordinary. But soon my mother-in-law began to come over pretty frequently. We were basically having dinner together every night. Initially, I was the one cooking, but then she started taking over, saying stuff like, "My husband needs his mom's cooking to be healthy and happy." I was a bit uncomfortable with this and tried to talk to my husband. But he told me she was just trying to be sweet and wasn't it nice that I had to do less work around the house? I didn't know what to say to that. I mean, technically it was true. I was just really confused. From the kitchen, it went on to other things. I had to do things in a particular way, or my mother-in-law would be just endlessly snarky to me. She even began staying over more and more frequently to the point where I felt like she was living with us full time. My husband and I went out sometimes, and if we stayed out too late, she would be upset. A few months in, I was talking about how I might want to open a small business making customized gifts and things like that, and she was very dismissive about it. I tried to insist by saying I miss making art. I've always loved art and have painted my whole life, and thought that it would be a good way of interacting with new people and practicing what I love doing. She continued being dismissive and said that there was no need to make such a big deal out of a little hobby, so this is how things were. I tried talking to my husband several times, but he just wouldn't get it. Obviously, she was the nicest person ever when he was around. This went on for several months. I felt depressed. I was constantly walking on eggshells around my mother-in-law and was just miserable. I wanted to run away but didn't want to leave my marriage. I tried telling my husband that maybe we should move back to the city, and he just wouldn't get it. He told me that he had just settled into work and couldn't really move now. So I was just stuck. I spent my anniversary there, totally hopeless. Then one day I got a call from my dad. He had a minor accident and had broken his hip. Thankfully, it wasn't a major fracture, but he still needed surgery and then bed rest for at least 3 months, and there was no one to take care of him. I have no siblings, and my mom passed away a few years ago. I had to immediately go to my hometown and take care of my dad. My husband was obviously super supportive, and he chose to come with me and stay for a few days to help me settle in. He wanted to stay longer, but obviously he had work and everything. So I stayed with my dad for 4 months. He actually had a relatively quick recovery and told me I could leave earlier, but I was really enjoying spending time with him and was in no rush to get back home to my mother-in-law. My husband visited me every other week, and I felt like I could finally breathe. It's now the end of 4 months, though. I know I need to leave. I'm flying back tomorrow, and I'm dreading what's to come. Part of me is hoping that my mother-in-law has magically become a better person, but I obviously know that's not true. Pray for me, you guys. Update 1. I'm back home, and guess what? The first thing that I discovered is that my mother-in-law was now occupying the guest bedroom full time. She said that since I wasn't there to take care of my husband, she had to step in. So yeah, hostile from the very beginning. I reached around noon, and around dinner time when I went to cook, she was already there in the kitchen. She told me I didn't need to cook anymore because her son prefers her food anyway. I have this sinking feeling in my stomach. I've no idea what to do. I don't really have anyone to talk to. Any advice would be seriously appreciated here, guys. Update 2. I think my marriage is over. I don't know what to say. So it has been 2 weeks since I came back home, and things have been unbearable. My mother-in-law lives here now and goes back to check up on her house every few days. I've tried talking to my husband about it, and he just dismissed me, saying that she would be hurt if we asked her to leave, and since she was nice enough to handle everything around the house when I was not there, it would be rude to ask her to leave now. To keep myself distracted, I decided to start up my business. Mother-in-law was obviously a horror about it, but I decided to just go ahead with it. I had a meeting with a vendor out of town and told my husband about it. He had purposely not told my mother-in-law, but obviously my husband decided to take the liberty to let her know. You guys can probably imagine her reaction, but I told myself I didn't care and would do what I wanted to do. On the day of my meeting, I was running a bit late when I realized that I couldn't find my keys anywhere. My mother-in-law was also not around, so I had to lock the door. I called her, but she didn't pick up. Confused and stressed, I tried to open the door when I realized it was locked. What the hell? I didn't understand what was going on. Then I saw my mother-in-law in the garden. That was probably the first time ever I've been relieved at seeing her. I yelled to get her attention, and she came up to the door. I told her that the door is locked and I was really late for my meeting. You guys won't believe what she did. She told me that she was the one who locked the door, and she did it because I needed to stay home and not waste time on my silly business. I couldn't believe what she was saying. I thought she was joking and begged her to open the door, but she wouldn't budge. I called up my husband crying, and he wouldn't take me seriously either. He told me that she was probably just pranking me and that she'd open the door any second. I was so helpless, I didn't know what to do. I did the first thing that came to my mind and called the cops. I was crying so hard at that point that I could barely speak. The cops showed up. My mother-in-law obviously opened the door. She was furious and tried to make it look like a misunderstanding. She called up my husband, who rushed there in 10 minutes. All the neighbors had gathered. It was basically a huge scene. The cops asked me if I wanted to press charges, and I just looked at my husband once. I knew I couldn't press charges even if I wanted to. I thanked the cops and told them that I was okay and didn't want to do anything further. They left after that. This happened 2 days ago, and my husband is not speaking to me. He has been living with my mother-in-law at her place, and despite my efforts, refuses to talk to me. I don't know what to do. Update 3. I wasn't expecting all the support I've received from everyone here. I never thought of what was going on as abuse. But you guys might be right. I've also talked to my dad and told him about everything that's been going on, and he told me to leave immediately. I think I'm going to take this advice. I don't want to spend a single more second with either my husband and mother-in-law, and my only regret is not walking out sooner. OP, this is emotional abuse. I honestly don't understand what the hell your husband is doing. I married myself, and if anyone treated my wife as badly as your mother-in-law has treated you, I wouldn't care about anything. I'd sue them to oblivion. I'm sorry you had to go through this all by yourself, but it's time to walk out. Girl, you needed to divorce this man as soon as you discovered your mother-in-law's actual personality. Your husband doesn't deserve you. Let him be a mama's boy, and please leave this hellscape of a marriage. Next story. My oldest sister got engaged on Christmas Day. I was spending Christmas with her and her fiancé and his family over the holidays. I'm in college right now. She asked me to be her maid of honor that same day, and I accepted happily. My dad and stepmom were so mad when they found out I accepted. You see, my sister and I lost our mom when we were young. I was 6 and she was 9. Dad met our stepmom a year later and married her. She brought our 3 step-siblings into the mix. She shared custody of her boys, who were 13 and 11, while her 7-year-old daughter had no dad. I love my stepmom and stepsister. My stepbrothers, I don't know super well, but consider them family anyway. My sister was different, and she never cared. She was distanced from them and favored her relationship with me. When my sister turned 18, she moved out, and that Christmas when she came back, we spent 2 days in a row together. Dad told her that she would not be welcome in the home if she continued to show favoritism because she has 5 siblings. He and stepmom have our half-brother together. And not just one, and she has a mom in the house as well who she should try to spend more time with. Not just him, because she had invited Dad out for lunch just then. My sister was like, okay, I can leave. Dad was like, no, you're going to start treating them the same. She said it wouldn't happen, and they have not spoken since. Dad told her it wasn't what she meant. She told him she'd never see his wife or her kids the same as she saw him, his mom, or me, and that she wasn't going to go out of her way to spend time with people she was indifferent towards. My stepsister has really hated not seeing her. Her brothers don't really have the same relationship with her that they have with each other, and she always wanted us to make up for that since we'd share the same house all the time. But she also struggled with my sister and I having such a different relationship to the one she and I have. At the same time, she wanted my sister around so she could hopefully come around to being her sister in time. So Dad has apparently lurked on my sister's Facebook, saw the announcement she made about me being maid of honor, and then he let it slip around my stepsister. She was upset I was asked, and she didn't get to be a bridesmaid, and now my parents are angry that I accepted the role as her maid of honor, or that I would even be her bridesmaid when they are unlikely to even be invited, and since my stepsister is hurt. Dad told me it was insensitive and inconsiderate of me. He told me I should not be going along with someone who rejects our family. AITA? NTA. First off, who your sister chooses to have in her bridal party is her decision, and you should not be punished for accepting a role she offered. Secondly, it is not fair your dad and stepmom is putting you in the middle of all of this. Your sister is allowed to have her own relationship with people in the family provided it's respectful. That should have been all that mattered. Blending families is tough, and you can't force someone to feel like family. Your stepsister is allowed to feel hurt that she wanted that sister to bond, and it didn't work out. But it sounds like it is time for her to start putting that hurt to rest. NTA, there's something seriously wrong with your dad, though. The relationship with you is going to be even more important to your sister with your dad acting like a nutty control freak. NTA, her wedding is her decision. If your family doesn't like it, then they shouldn't come. Next story. I live in a house with 3 roommates. For the last several months, one of my roommates, who I'll call V, has been having her mother basically live with us. She is almost always at the house, at least 4 to 5 days a week. She takes hours in the kitchen cooking, does laundry here, and even parks in our driveway. After having to take my laundry to my parents' house 20 minutes away several times because I have work clothes that I need washing, while her mother is using our washing machine, I have been getting really fed up and feel like this is a total intrusion of our property. On Christmas morning, my one day after sleep late, she woke me up at 9 a.m., chopping a duck in our kitchen. There have been many examples like this that have been building up over the last several months. Recently, I had to basically work 48 hours straight and was excited to go home and have my girlfriend come over and cook us a meal. I had a ton of laundry to do and bring in from my car. As I get home, I see the mom is parked in the driveway. I bring in all my stuff from the street parking to find the mom using our kitchen and washing machine. I see that V is not home, just the mother using our whole house. Fed up, I contacted the landlord, who said she would talk to V. 2 days later, I came home to see the mother in our home, while V is not home, using our washing machine again. I decided to watch her exit the house and see that she had a key. I believe this is completely unreasonable and she should only be here as V's guest while she is home. I contacted the landlord again to tell him, and he said he agreed with me. Later that night, V and the mother confronted me for speaking to the landlord. She said that the mother cleans the house and is always very sweet to us, which is true. She called me out for not taking the garbage out enough, which is also true. But my justification was, if the mom is living here for free, she can at least do these things. I would be happy to do them if she left. I asked her to tell me how many nights a week her mom sleeps here, and she refused to answer. Her mom admitted to having a key when I said I saw her, and V accused me of basically creepily watching her mother when I said I also watched to see if she was the one doing laundry. They said they were doing V's laundry, but I saw the mom taking loads in and out of her car. They also used the excuse that it is part of their culture several times, which I told them then they should find a place where they can live together, where they both pay rent. I told the mother that she should not have a key to our home and only come as V's guest. V firmly believes I'm the a-hole here because she says she pays rent so she can do as she pleases too. But I still feel like this is completely overstepping their boundaries. AITA for telling the mom she can't live at the house anymore. NTA, 4 people are paying rent and utilities. None of you agreed to a 5th person. V's mother is mooching off all of you and depriving you of the amenities that you're paying for. Washer, dryer. V is wrong about being able to do whatever she wants. NTA, she says she pays rent so she can do as she pleases too. She's not doing as she pleases, her mom is. And that statement doesn't work in a roommate situation. And this bargain of the mom doing things for the house, was that agreed upon? That said, maybe you should have mentioned it to V before calling the landlord to make sure they knew this wasn't working for you. Next story. Female 41. Have been friends with Mandy, female 40, since we were 8 years old. Sometimes the friendship became overwhelming, but I usually made space for her. I came to believe that we were like sisters. It's just that I found her intense and extremely needy. Some of my friends called her the female version of the cable guy. Her communication style doesn't allow space for different opinions, and she tends to talk over people in every conversation. This originated my decision to go no contact for 2 years. Eventually, we reconnected, but instead of engaging, she stays dead quiet in conversations, and when I pause, she redirects the conversation back to herself. I came to the conclusion that since we've been friends for decades, I really didn't want to cut her off, but rather understand that she's not perfect. I chose to create some boundaries, which worked really well. She got engaged, and since she's broke and her fiance's family didn't approve of the relationship, no one would be contributing to her wedding. Her family announced they wouldn't be attending. She asked to use my family room as her wedding venue, and I agreed. Because my lease would end soon, I talked to the landlord so that I could pay on a weekly basis just to have the place available. I would pay 1 extra week after my lease expired so that she could have her wedding. We agreed that she couldn't have more than 20 people over. I got sick with COVID and she disappeared on me. Her reaction was to ask me if the house would be disinfected and available for the wedding. She never showed concern about my health. I called her twice when I was really sick and she was detached and clearly not paying attention to our conversation. She got triggered after I had to remind her that the 46 people she had invited weren't feasible and I could get in trouble with the landlord. I reached out at a different time. When I told her how I felt, she said it was her moment to be finally happy and that she needed to be in the moment. Her decisions clashed with the rules. She completely ignored my concerns via texts and would reply, "There's nothing I can do." Mandy completely refused to reply to my messages for about 3 weeks. I decided the best I could do was move out as per my lease expiration and not pay the weekly fee. She contacted me days before the wedding. Because I didn't answer, she blasted my phone off. Her fiancé took a selfie in front of my gate, so I called him back and said I no longer lived there and that Mandy would know how she not ignored all my attempts at reaching out. I heard nothing back from them. Fast forward, and I got an email from him. He apologized for her behavior and said they broke up because the wedding venue situation led him to understand that she only brings chaos into his life. He asked me to respect his space and not reply. I destroyed her life and I feel horrible. All I wanted was to not be disrespected, but I wasn't trying to implode her relationship. NTA, you bent over backwards for her, and she couldn't do the bare minimum, i.e., communicate with you. You didn't destroy her life, she did. Honestly, she sounds exhausting, and I don't get what she brings to the friendship. I get that you've known each other a long time, but friendships don't last forever. Sometimes they just end, and you go your separate ways, and that's okay. NTA, you did not blow up Mandy's life. She was doing a fine job of that all by herself. Mandy was not managing her affairs well, and she's totally self-absorbed. You tried to communicate with her, enforce your landlord's rules, and even planned to pay a week of extra rent. So she didn't keep in contact, didn't respond with any evidence of care when you let her know you were ill. If Mandy has been generally kind, present, and responsible in her relationship with you, she'd probably still have a venue. Knowing her behavior, do you think she acted any better towards her ex-fiancé? People don't usually end otherwise good relationships over venue issues. Mandy's failure to secure your home as her venue was the last straw, not the first. Stay tuned for more stories from Our Girl Relationships.